and Poland, Hungary, or Romania. The last program featured the role Nigerians in Hungary played in helping Nigerian students that fled Ukraine settle down in Hungary and facilitating their transfer to some of the best universities in Hungary. During our coverage adventure of the war in Ukraine, I was in Hungary where I met the leadership of the Nigeria in Diaspora Organisation NIDO Hungary. And on the show today, we will bring you a short clip of the interview I had with some of the members of the organization in the country on the Ukrainian war and the role NIDO Hungary played in collaborating with the Nigerian embassy in Hungary, where Nigerians fleeing Ukraine arrived the Eastern European country. We shall also continue our assessment of the war in Ukraine, the devastating impacts on Ukraine and its people, the role of religious leaders in ensuring that the humanitarian disaster ends immediately. Joining us from Geneva is the permanent representative of the Holy See to the United Nations office in Geneva and the World Trade Organization, His Grace Most Reverend Archbishop Thanatos Nwachukwu. He'll be joining us to discuss how we can bring this humanitarian disaster to an end almost immediately and the role that leaders should play. And that will be just after this interview with NIDO officials in Hungary, and we'll return and continue our program with His Eminence Most Reverend Archbishop Thanatos Nwachukwu, who will be speaking on the topic of today. Don't go away, it's going to be an interesting topic.
Having some calls that Nigerians were trying to get into Hungary, but the Hungarian government at that time was not allowing it, so that was when NIDO saw it as a matter of interest. We started calling the embassy, started calling the authorities in Nigeria. I believe that those calls actually helped in some ways, because within 24 hours we heard that the Hungarian government has opened their borders, that Nigerians should be also allowed to come in. So we found out that most of them are coming in from Zahoni. Before then, contacted one of our NIDO members in Debrecen to at least help us once they're coming in. We started posting on social media that please, if you come in, contact us. We need to also post our number. So when they were coming in, they were being taken with by one of our president in Debrecen, which after some days we have to go there also with some relief materials to see how we can assist. So from the moment they were allowed to come in, NIDO Hungary started actions, and also doing this with the help of the embassy, because we share information and they give us, we give them, and that's how it has been going since.
How did you see Nigerian government's reaction, especially with the evacuation?
Honestly, we commend the president, the Nigerian government, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, because at first we thought it's going to be like the old ways. So I think within a few days there was already a flight here, and people were asked to register the embassy. So they really did do it this time, you know. It's not easy sending 3 airlines within the space of 1 week. So I commend them. I think they did a very good job.
Because, if we had no NIDO here, if we had no Nigerian embassy, it would have been difficult. And some of us, that is some Nigerians, we were just asking questions like, oh, what is NIDO going to do for me? Oh, what does Nigerian embassy do for me? Now they have seen that anybody could be a refugee, and that's why it's quite important that when you are abroad, you must align with the associations that has to do with your country or the embassy. We're talking about the contribution of NIDO Hungary and the Nigerian embassy. I think it's what I saw. It's excellent, very impressive. I saw the networking, I saw the mobilization. NIDO was feeding the people were supporting NIDO in different ways. And that sense of patriotism was just very glaring. And this assures us also once again that no matter the difficult times, we remain one people, one good, beautiful people.
What about the intervention of the Nigerian government?
The intervention of the Nigerian government started with the approval of $8.5 million by President Muhammadu Buhari, which I think is quite on the high side, because My coalition, the Global Coalition for Security and Democracy in Nigeria, is very sensitive about government spending, especially when we're talking about spending that does not translate to what is on ground. Because if you are projecting $8.5 million to evacuate, for example, 1,000 people, there has to be accountability, because Nigeria is borrowing to fund a budget. So we must be very careful so that we don't use every opportunity. We don't turn our pains to gains. But talking about the role that the government played, the presidency, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it's their duty to do what they did. And it's normal, because even before the evacuation of Nigerians from Ukraine, the Indians and other governments have done this. So it's normal that they did what they did, because that is why they voted for them to be in office. But if somebody is doing well, you have to compliment. We're not just looking for a government to criticize, we're looking for a government to praise for doing well. So for this evacuation process, we say kudos to the government of Nigeria, and we hope that there should be this quick response to issues like this that concerns one Nigeria, anywhere, anytime.
Well, welcome back. Those were the interviews I had while I was in Budapest, Hungary, in the course of trying to cover the war in Ukraine, and we spoke with the leadership of the Nigeria Diaspora Organisation NIDO about what they are doing to help Nigerians that are fleeing Ukraine, either into Hungary or into Poland or into Romania. And there you heard how NIDO collaborated with the Nigerian embassy in Hungary to ensure that those that are fleeing into that part of Eastern European find some refuge before they settle down. They are even helping some of those students to get back to university in Hungary. Good job they are doing there. Now let's get back to the topic of today. I have joining me all the way from Geneva is Grace Most Reverend Archbishop Fonatus Nwachukwu, who is the his representatives at the World Trade Organization and the United Nations office in Geneva. He's joining us all the way from Geneva to look at global concerted efforts to end the humanitarian disaster in Ukraine. It's Grace, thank you for joining us live here on the program. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Good evening, sir.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Let me ask you, what is your assessment of the war in Ukraine?
My assessment of the war in Ukraine is that it is very unfortunate. War should not be used as a means of solution to conflicts. War does not resolve anything. If you end any conflict with war, you are only postponing the solution. The effective, durable solution to any conflict is reached through dialogue and through conversation. War is the instrument used by cowards, people that are not able to face each other with courage and negotiate. So it is really very unfortunate that we have had a resort to war in resolving this conflict.
We've had instances where several leaders around the world, but in Europe, in America, have spoken against what is happening in Ukraine, and also obviously has also spoken. We've had the Pope spoken several times condemning the war and speaking up against what is happening there. But where we are now, it does appear we keep having serious humanitarian issues, crisis and disaster on our hand by day. What are world leaders doing, especially religious leaders? What are you doing to ensure that this comes to an end?
First, let me talk about the Pope. The Holy Father, Pope Francis, has been very active. He has been hands-on in seeking a solution to this conflict. On the very day that the invasion occurred, the Pope went immediately to the embassy of Russia, to the Holy See, to express his displeasure, as it were his protest against the use of war in seeking a solution. And then he also offered the readiness of the Holy See in trying to negotiate a peaceful solution to the conflict. Apart from that visit to the Russian embassy, to the Holy See, the Pope has also sent 2 cardinals as his envoys to Ukraine. And one of the cardinals, Cardinal Cherny, has actually done a second visit to Ukraine, each time trying to first extend a voice of search for humanitarian solution, or a peaceful solution to the conflict, but also sending assistance to the victims and to those who are caught up in this conflict. And then the Pope has even gone further. The Pope has spoken directly to the religious leader of Russia, who is the Orthodox, Russian Orthodox Patriarch, Kirill, trying to always look for a peaceful solution to the conflict. And the Pope also did what we are ordained to do, which is prayer. The Pope invited all the religious leaders, especially of the Catholic Church worldwide, to join with him in praying for, actually in consecrating the entire world, and in a special way in consecrating Russia and Ukraine to the Immaculate Heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary. We know that the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of our Lord Jesus Christ, is a symbol of maternal love, and that is the love that is against conflict. And the best way of expressing love to the people of Ukraine and the people of Russia was this act of prayer. So from the point of view of the Catholic Church, the point of view of the Pope has actually done everything that he is supposed to do up to this moment. Going to the Russian embassy, to the Holy See, speaking directly to the leader of the Russian Orthodox Church, sending delegates, his representatives, envoys, 2 cardinals to Ukraine, and then also consecrating Ukraine and Russia to the Immaculate Heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And let me also underline a dimension. You know that the Holy See never abandons the people in the midst of conflict. You may wish to know that my colleague, our nuncio to Ukraine, has not left Ukraine.
Wow.
Most of the other Western diplomats and ambassadors have left Ukraine, but the apostolic nuncio to Ukraine is still there. He is still in Kiev to show our solidarity as a way of protesting against the use of force, the use of war as a means of solving conflict. The position of the Catholic Church as a religious entity is that of seeking dialogue, seeking peaceful approach to a solution to this conflict. Next week, I will be meeting with the Secretary General of the World Council of Churches here in Geneva, and I'm going to raise again this issue to know what is being done at the level of the World Council of Churches to seek a peaceful solution to the conflict in Ukraine.
Following those steps that you've highlighted, that the Pope has taken through by himself, visits to Russia embassies, the Holy See, and of course other cardinals that have been deployed, and of course your colleague in Ukraine, who despite the crisis, the shelling, the missile attack, has remained in Kiev, showing his solidarity even against his own life. Other countries and nations have taken steps against Russia. Is the Pope and the Holy See considering the fact that all efforts to make Russia, to make Vladimir Putin see reason, they failed? Would you be taking steps against Russia, against Putin, and will there be sanctions? Will there be consequences apart from these meetings and prayers? Are you considering sanctions, consequences, just the way other nations have done?
The Holy See does not proceed through sanctions. The Holy See proceeds by dialogue. I have to tell you where our logic comes from. First, we have two elements. We are an entity that bases its action on the dictates of the gospel, the dictates of the Holy Scriptures and of divine revelation. If we go back to the Bible, you go and read the text of the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 13. We find it very clearly written, "Thou shalt not kill." So we are against any means of ending conflict that takes human life. War can only be justified if there is a war that does not take human life. And since there is no war that does not take human life, war should be avoided at all costs. Having said that, let us know what or who the Pope is. The Pope is called the Supreme Pontiff. That is the first among all the pontiffs. I want to tell you where we have the word pontiff. If we were to read the letter to the Hebrews in the Bible, you can read up to 13 verses in this letter alone. I just mentioned to you, letter to the Hebrews, chapter 3, verse 1. Letter to the Hebrews, chapter 4, verse 13, verse 15, and chapter 5, verse 1, especially chapter 5, verse 1, speaks about having a high priest. Now, the word interpreted, translated in English as high priest in the original Greek text is written archiereus. Archiereus. Archiereus is like the archbishop, the archpriest. The Latin translation of archiereus is pontifex. It is from this word pontifex that we have the word pontiff. Pontifex is from two Latin words, pons pontis, bridge, facere, to make. So pontifex is the bridge maker. That is why in Hebrews chapter 5 verse 1, the archpriest, the high priest is the person that makes bridge between God and human being and between sinful men among themselves and women, of course. Now, with Jesus being the high priest,
I'm afraid
God and
His Grace, Most Reverend Archbishop Wachuku, but because of my time, I'm not sure if Mr. Putin reads Bible or he reads those chapters you're quoting, probably. Yes or not, we don't know, considering the number of lives that have been lost. We're not sure if he reads the Bible or but let me ask you before I let you go, because we've really run out of time, sir.
Are supposed to be a background to tell you what the Pope is.
Yes.
The Pope is the Supreme Pontiff.
All right.
His role is not that of creating sanctions. His role is that of building bridges.
All right. Thank you so much.
Having said that, as bridge builder, we try to put our legs on both sides that are in conflict. We do not exclude any side. We talk to one side and we talk to the other side. A bridge is not effective if it is only one leg. The bridge must be planted on both sides. So the process, the method of the Holy See is not the method of sanctions. The method of the Holy See is the method of dialogue.
All right.
It is the gospel method of seeking always peace until all efforts have proved abortive.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Most Reverend Archbishop Nwachukwu, who is the permanent representative of the Holy See to the United Nations office in Geneva and the World Trade Organization. I was saying I'm not sure if Mr. Putin reads his Bible, because those chapters you have quoted, they do extensively indicate why this war should end, but I'm not sure if the man reads those chapters. But however, I would have loved to ask you, we're privileged, you
think that President Putin presents himself as a religious person. He attends religious services, and this is the irony, and this is a thing that we cannot understand. We have two countries that present themselves as countries of Christian majority in population. How is it that Christians are killing themselves in the midst of conflict?
That's a very good question.
And it is something that is not acceptable among Christians.
This is where I would like to end the program. Why these highly religious, probably religious Christian countries, a good number of the population having Christian background, probably they are even Catholic in their denomination, and probably putting himself as a Catholic, Orthodox, are still engaging. But this is where I would like to stop. So privilege honor to have you join us on the program. We would like to have you come back very soon, because it's a privilege to have you as a Nigerian in your position. We would like to talk about the killings, the insecurity in Nigeria, which people like you who are in such highly placed positions in the Holy See are doing it to ensure peace returns tonight. But that is not what we can discuss on this program. We'd like to bring you back at another time to look at the Nigerian situation, the insecurity in the country, and how your office and other offices in the Holy See, the role you've been playing, that you can play to ensure peace returns to Nigeria. Thank you so much. His Grace Most Reverend Archbishop Nwachukwu, who is the permanent representative of the Holy See to the United Nations office in Geneva and the World Trade. Thank you for taking the time to join us on the program today, sir.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right, this is how far we can go on the program. My name is Tunde Alabi. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the program. We will continue to probably pray for Ukraine and pray for Russia, and those who are close to Mr. Putin probably read more of those Bible verses as quoted by His Grace to him, so that he can understand that this bloodshed must stop. My name is Tunde Alabi. Enjoy the rest of your week.